are there words you're not going to hear on Russian TV?
War or invasion, right? This is an incursion into Ukraine. A special military operation, I believe, is the phrase that's supposed to be used.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
И в начале ситуации в зоне проведения специальной операции по защите жителей Донецкой и Луганской народных республик.
Как долго будет идти спецоперация по защите народных республик?
До достижения поставленных целей.
If you turn the TV on in Russia, you're going to get the version that the Russian government wants told to the Russian people.
Выполняя поставленные задачи по защите наших людей на Донбассе, по обеспечению безопасности нашей Родины, российские солдаты и офицеры действуют мужественно.
То есть это такая сбывается мечта всех недобитых нацистов, то есть пойти поубивать русских.
But particularly in Russia, people who are older tend to get a tremendous amount of their news from television, more so than in other countries. When Putin took over as president in 2000, there was independent media in Russia, there was thriving independent media, there were large independent media stations. Since that time, the state has gradually enacted more and more control over media, and it has gotten worse in recent years. One story that's been told to the Russian population is this is an ongoing story about the expansion of NATO threatening Russia's security. There's another story that's also being told, which is that this point Putin made in sort of the immediate run-up to the war, which is this argument that Ukraine is not a real country, that Ukraine is actually part of Russia.
Вместе с тем, президент подчеркнул, что никогда не откажется от своего убеждения, что русские и украинцы – это один народ. Пусть даже часть жителей соседней страны сегодня не готовы это признать.
And so this is a story about, the idea that Ukraine, which is sort of part and parcel of Russia, could be turning away from Russia and turning away to the West. That's seen as somehow an antithetical to the very essence of what it means to be Russia. And so that's the story whereby Putin says, these are our brothers, this is not right. It must be because they've been corrupted by their leadership. And that's the sort of third story that gets told, which is that the leadership of Ukraine has sold out to the West these kind of crazy assertions that the Ukrainian government is being run by Nazis and now Nazis and drug addicts.
Командование ДНР предоставило населению гуманитарные коридоры, но украинские нацисты, как их еще называть, взяли мирных жителей в заложники и из города не выпускают.
And then you have this final piece, which is that there are these two republics in south and eastern part of Ukraine, Luhansk and Donetsk, that in the aftermath of the 2014 conflict that led to Crimea being annexed from Ukraine by Russia, separatists in those regions began fighting to try to get those regions also independent from Ukraine. In the run-up to the war, Putin was repeatedly talking about genocide against Russians, despite no evidence to this on the ground, that Russians in these regions were being attacked. So if you turn on Russian TV, you're likely to see combinations of these narratives.
Всем привет! 8 вечера в российской столице, в Москве. Как обычно, на «Дожде» мы продолжаем наши спецэфиры, посвященные тем событиям, которые сейчас происходят на Украине, на территории Украины. Ну и так, несмотря на блокировки и ограничения, продолжаем рассказывать вам о том, что происходит. Итак, сегодня продолжились боевые действия на территории Украины. Мы обязаны называть это спецоперацией. Таковы требования закона.
tragically, a number of journalists in Russia have been killed, have been physically beaten and attacked. But they risk livelihood, right? You're not going to have an opportunity to work for state media, which is where the big TV is and everything like that, if you are doing this. And you can risk harassment of your families. And journalists have fled the country. Young people everywhere, are much more likely to get their news through internet, through mobile, through social media. They're much more likely to be savvy about how to use VPNs. But there's one aspect of this I think that's super important here to address, which is that Russians have friends and family in Ukraine. The Russian and Ukrainian societies are very much intertwined. And so, yes, you can try to shut down Facebook or try to shut down Twitter, but people are going to get things through text messages. They're going to get things, and Telegram, which is a popular app in Russia, is kind of a fusion of WhatsApp and Twitter. Telegram has been used before to coordinate protests in Russia. It was used a lot to coordinate protests in Belarus. This is a much more complicated problem for a regime to control information when people have encrypted apps and when people are using messaging groups. I think that this is going to be a very dangerous time for people who are opponents of the war, and which makes all the more courageous what people are doing who are speaking out against the war.